They're great on the go.
There's always a snack that you can grab and take with you.
Perfect for a pick-me-up.
Snacks are like my middle day filler.
Convenience is really king when it comes to snack foods.
And a sure hit for sharing.
With no other snack, you can put a bowl on the table and everyone jumps in with one handful.
But behind our favorite snack treats are ingenious ideas.
We have taken such a basic snack and turned it into a gourmet treat.
And incredible technology.
If we didn't laminate the dough, you basically get very thick goldfish.
Equipment continues to advance from a technology standpoint.
Discover the science behind a snack attack on Fantastic Food Factories. Everyone loves to snack.
Snacks are nostalgic, they take you back to your childhood.
And today, Fantastic Food Factories have snack making down to a science.
The technology and machinery that's used in the industry is really quite amazing.
They're fast, they're consistent, and their tech and techniques have turned small businesses into icons.
A lot of snack manufacturers have started out as mom and pop shops and evolved into snack empires.
And why are we so passionate about snacks? Is it the convenience, the taste, or something to do with our love of salt, an important ingredient in most of our favorite snacks?
We really do have cravings for salt, and it's important to understand why we crave it. It's very rare when you actually need salt physiologically, but psychologically, actually from eating salt, you actually do get a boost. Those ions go right into the channels of your tongue and are absorbed very quickly, and you do get kind of a feeling of happiness.
And when it comes to satisfying a salt fix, potato chips are one of the best snacks around. In fact, salt is one of the main ingredients of potato chips. Maybe that's why manufacturers sell more potato chips than any other snack food. It's a $6 billion a year industry with clever technology behind every crunch.
Potato chips were the snack food that really started the whole ball rolling for the industry. With the commercial development of potato chips in restaurants first, and then mom and pop operations out of the homes that started to be sold in general stores and then in grocery stores were really the origins of the industry.
A perfect example is America's #1 producer of potato chips. Every week, this family-owned and operated snack factory produces an amazing 1 million pounds of potato chips. It's got to be Utz. The story of the potato chip begins one night in 1853 at the resort town of Saratoga Springs, New York. Railroad and shipping tycoon Cornelius Vanderbilt was eating at a posh restaurant called Moon's Lake Lodge. Vanderbilt, a difficult customer, complained about the thickness of his potatoes. Half in spite, the chef retaliated by cutting them razor thin. Vanderbilt loved them. So did everybody else. That gave the Utzes a business idea. They heard about a man who had chip-making equipment and decided to buy it. Michael Rice, the couple's grandson, runs the company today.
The Utz Company began in 1921 with my grandparents. They scraped together $300, bought that equipment, and moved it to their kitchen of a small house in Hanover. Their friends all said they were crazy giving up a good-paying factory job to go into a venture like that.
Bill and Sally Utz called their snack Hanover Home Brand Potato Chips. Back then, they used hand-operated equipment. Still, Sally Utz made 50 pounds of chips per hour.
Grandma cooked them, and Grandpa would sell them door to door.
People loved the Utz family chips. And to meet the demand, in 1936, they installed one of the first automatic chip cookers. It made 6 times as many chips, 300 pounds per hour. Innovations have continued ever since, and today Bill and Sally's family factory is still located in Hanover, Pennsylvania.
My parents always said they would be glad to have me do that, but they didn't want me to think it was automatic or expected. They wanted me to go to school, but my long-term intent was always to come back into the business and hopefully develop the potential that I thought it had.
The secret of making the perfect chip begins underground with the potato. But it's no easy task to get that spud from the ground into your favorite bag of chips. For starters, the potato chip's golden brown color doesn't come from just any potato. You need a potato that's rarely seen in a grocery store. It's a specially selected chipping potato.
Table stock has a much sweeter taste to it. If we were to take table stock potatoes and actually fry them up the way we do a normal potato chip, what we'd run into is a potato chip that would be extremely dark.
Every year, Utz uses more than 175 million pounds of potatoes. They store them in enormous cellars that can hold 40 million pounds at any one time. When stored in winter, to keep them from growing, shrinking, or drying out, the potatoes are maintained at a constant temperature of 67 degrees and humidity of 85%. The wrong temperature and humidity here could risk the outcome of the perfect potato chip.
We call it putting them to sleep, and then during the wintertime, they're actually dormant. And in the springtime, when we get ready to use them again, we actually start increasing the temperature in the room and wake them up and bring them back to life.
A simple but important machine, the sorting machine, separates the big potatoes from the smaller ones. Ultimately, the larger potatoes chips will end up in big bags, smaller potatoes chips in smaller bags. Next, the potatoes are washed and flumed upstairs to the peeler. This sophisticated machine can skin 120 pounds of potatoes in less than a minute. The inner part of the drum is coarse, like sandpaper. The drum spins, the potatoes are tossed, and every side is cleanly peeled, ready for hand inspection.
If an inspector would actually see a bad spot on the potato, he has a knife in his hand that he can take that piece and slice it off. If the potato is too big at that time, he can actually cut that potato in half.
The peeled potatoes are dumped into a slicer. The 8 stainless steel blades cut them into pieces 51/1000th of an inch thick, slightly thinner than the thickness of a dime.
There's actually a flat blade that looks like this, and the potato comes across it and is sliced this way.
How do they make rippled chips? A special blade. They're cut a little thicker, 58/1000th of an inch, slightly thicker than the thickness of a dime. The chips are run through a wash drum. This rinses off the potato starch. Starch determines a chip's texture. Lots of starch and you've got a browner and more crunchy kettle-style chip. Less starch and you've got a lighter, more golden, traditional-style chip. The drum must rinse just the right amount of starch off the chip in order for it to get that final golden color.
If you wouldn't get the starch off the product itself, it would come out a little hard tasting and almost taste like a kettle chip. The biggest difference between a kettle chip and a continuous chip is that we do not wash the slices of a kettle chip, leaving the starch on the product to give it a harder bite.
One extra step, additional seasoning just before they go in the bag. From beginning to end, it takes Utz only about 30 minutes to make their 85-year-old classic potato chip.
When you look back over the years, from 1921 till today, it's virtually the same product. Anybody can make a potato chip, but the chances of them making it consistently the same way, day in and day out for 80 years, is pretty rare.
One of America's favorite snack attacks comes in the form of a tiny cheddar cheese cracker. But there's nothing fishy about how Pepperidge Farm uses technology to give life to more than 25 million goldfish an hour.
The wonderful thing about the Goldfish brand is that it seems to have almost unlimited potential for pleasing consumers.
They're fun to eat because I like to bite the ridges and I like to snap them in half.
From its very beginning in 1937, natural ingredients have been a cornerstone at Pepperidge Farm. One reason? Founder Margaret Rudkin's very real concern about her family's health.
One of Margaret's sons had severe allergies, and it made him unable to eat a lot of commercial foods. So Margaret decided to try baking him some homemade bread that was all natural and had no artificial ingredients and had lots of whole grain.
Margaret's breads were so delicious that friends and family urged her to sell them in her hometown of Fairfield, Connecticut. She started by baking loaves in her kitchen and then garage. Her price was 25 cents a loaf, more than twice the going rate, but everything still sold. High on success, she came up with a new name for her business.
She lived on a property that was actually known as Pepperidge Farm, and it was named for the pepperidge trees that grew by the driveway.
Following World War II in 1947, with great fanfare, Margaret Rudkin opened her first real bakery in Norwalk, Connecticut.
Margaret Rudkin always had a flair for public relations and for advertising. And so it was no accident that she opened her first plant on the 4th of July and made a big kind of Americana event out of that.
But what about those golden fish? It was during a trip to Switzerland in the late 1950s that Margaret discovered the small cheesy crackers. She got the recipe and started making them back in Connecticut. Like her loaves of bread, the goldfish were an instant success.
Margaret had an utter belief that quality was key to her products, that was what made them special and separated them from other people's products.
Making goldfish begins with one key ingredient.
We're using all real cheese, just like the cheese you would buy in your local supermarket, just lots more of it. Nothing artificial here, no artificial flavors, no artificial preservatives. We want to give the consumer a great tasting product made with all real ingredients.
The Pepperidge Farm factory makes their dough in 1,500-pound batches, enough to make more than 875,000 goldfish. In the mixer, the flavoring ingredients like spices and cheese are individually measured and all added by hand. When the doors close, the mixer automatically adds flour, water, and yeast. Inside, it's critical that the huge blades blend everything thoroughly, including solid 40-pound blocks of cheese.
It's very important to get a very consistent, uniform dough, and all those ingredients interact with each other.
The mixer dumps the dough into a stainless steel crate and covers it with plastic. Now the yeast goes into action. For 7 hours, the dough rests. As the dough expands, the plastic on the crate starts to lift or bulge. The dough is now ready to meet a top-secret piece of equipment called the laminator. It rolls the dough into large sheets, then cuts them into smaller sheets, staggers them, and stacks them. This process creates tiny, tasty air pockets. It's the key to goldfish's unique texture.
If you didn't do that step, you would just have one dense dough going through the oven, and that'll create a very thick, dense product in the end, and it'll give a much different texture and bite in the finished product compared to what you have today, which is a nice, light, airy snack.
Whether it won't have a smile, it's always a surprise.
What happens to the leftover web of dough? It's recycled into the next batch of goldfish. No waste here. After a dash of salt, the goldfish are ready to swim through the oven. It's a 250-foot long oven. The exact time and temperature are trade secrets, but we do know it's a very high temperature. And the goldfish are in there for less than 5 minutes. If anything goes wrong, the whole batch could be at stake.
Because of the way that we do our process, we would typically not find just one cracker that did not meet our specifications. It would be something wrong with the process, which would be causing all the crackers to not meet the specification.
Out of the heat, and a large rotating drum gives the fish a little oil.
It helps to bring out flavor, it helps to harmonize many of the flavors in the product, and it helps to make the product so it's not that dry.
The last steps? A specialist tests the goldfish for quality and the right puff. If they pass, they're ready for packaging and their signature goldfish bag.
There's something about goldfish that is just magical for people, and truly no one else has been able to ever replicate that.
Pepperidge Farm Goldfish. From a Connecticut kitchen to a high-tech, fantastic food factory, it's a traditional favorite that's creating a sea of tiny, tasty snack treats. It's one of the great, fantastic food factory mysteries. How do you get 850 peanuts into a jar of peanut butter? Though many may think they know the answer, if you want the truth, you need to go to the source. A food factory that solves the riddle almost 90 million times every year.
More Skippy has been sold than any other peanut butter brand in the entire world.
Peanut butter was around for 3 decades as a protein supplement for people who couldn't chew meat. When Skippy founder Joseph Rosefield made a great discovery. With early peanut butter, the oil would separate out from the rest of the mix. Rosefield figured out how to keep everything blended together. In 1932, he launched regular and chunky style peanut butters under the label Skippy. It was the beginning of a snack favorite with legions of fans.
There's a quote from one of the peanut butter lovers that I like to quote. It says, "Man does not live by bread alone, he must have peanut butter." And that was by Bill Cosby, who was in the famous Peanut Butter Lovers Club.
Is it the look or the texture that's made peanut butter such a hit? Some say it all starts with our taste buds. Each of us has about 10,000 of them. They detect the 5 basic flavors: salt, sweet, sour, bitter, and umami, the taste of protein. Our bodies crave tastes like sweet and salty because we need sugar and salt in our diets. With a food like peanut butter, taste buds hit the flavor jackpot. It's both sweet and salty.
Our palates are actually very sophisticated. An example might be for peanut butter. It has the salt basic taste, the sweet basic taste, but it's also that texture that combines with the basic taste to actually give you the overall impression of a taste explosion in your mouth.
In order to get good peanut butter, Skippy uses only the best peanuts, and they come mostly from the #1 peanut producing state in the U.S., Georgia. Skippy also uses peanuts from Texas, Alabama, Florida, and Oklahoma. But did you know that peanuts are not actually nuts? They're classified as legumes.
In the culinary sense, people classify them as nuts, but in the botanical sense, they're actually legumes, which are edible seeds encased in a pod, similar to beans and peas.
The peanut plants grow to about 18 inches tall and produce yellow flowers. Below the surface, attached to the root, grow the peanuts. After 4 months, the peanuts are ready for harvesting.
When the farmers harvest the peanuts in the fall, they are taken to shellers. Shellers dry the peanuts to a certain moisture content and store them until they can sell them to consumers like us. The shellers actually perform the service of shelling the peanuts before shipping them to us in rail cars.
At the Little Rock, Arkansas Fantastic Food Factory, Skippy freights in so many peanuts they actually have their own section of the railroad called a spur. Each new car holds an amazing 190,000 pounds. That's the weight of about 12 adult elephants. First step, checking and testing the new arrivals.
When our cars come in, they have 16 sheller seals on them. What we do is we check the seals for safety, making sure everything there is intact. We have 4 compartments, and what we're going to do is have the probe go down in each compartment, and then we can get amount of sample that we need. It goes all the way down to the bottom, come back up, and we'll take that, and this is transported from here over to our cone over to about a peanut lab.
The Skippy team makes sure the peanuts contain the correct moisture and protein content. If they pass, they're unloaded. And how do you unload a 190,000-pound railroad car? Suction. Lots of it.
What's going on here is that we're having our peanuts are being sucked out by 4 Hoffman blowers. They're being transported from our peanut bulk car system into our double drum receiver.
A double drum receiver transports the newly arrived peanuts to one of 12 200,000-pound storage silos. Each silo contains a different kind of peanut with a different oil content and taste. Skippy blends the different peanuts to create just the right texture and flavor. From the silo, a vibrating conveyor belt removes dirt, rocks, and shells while moving the peanuts to Skippy's secret weapon, the roaster. Capable of roasting 19,000 pounds of peanuts per hour, the gas-fired mega oven is nearly 80 feet long. Inside, it takes about 20 minutes to make magic.
During the roasting process, the oil that's contained in peanuts, which is around 53% normally, is released and prepped for coating the cell wall.
Heat drives the oil and moisture out of the peanut. As the oil is released, it actually stains the peanut's outer wall, turning it golden brown. Too much roasting, and the peanuts get too brown. During roasting, the heat causes the peanut skins to get brittle and split.
Cooling stops the roasting process. It also maintains a consistent color and prevents the oil from leaving the peanut. A blanching machine uses a combination of rubber belts and rubber rollers to gently rub the skins off the peanuts.
Up next, the sorter, an incredible machine. As the roasted peanuts race single file down a chute, the sorter uses infrared and color cameras to detect minor imperfections. If a detection is made, the peanut is rejected and a green light goes off. Without this step, the quality of the peanut butter could be drastically affected.
Once they're rejected, they actually get a second chance to be qualified. They're inspected a second time using the same process, and the good peanuts travel onto the milling process. Bad peanuts get rejected.
The peanuts are now ready for the 2 stages of milling. First, the grinder turns the peanuts into a paste Skippy calls ground roasted nuts. Then, into this mix or slurry, Skippy adds minor ingredients like salt, sugar, peanut oil, and a stabilizer.
This, when mixed with the peanut butter, causes the oil in the peanut butter to become stable and it doesn't separate. If you've ever used a natural peanut butter, you know that you usually have to stir the jar up to keep the oil from separating. This process prevents that separation.
Once the stabilizer is added, the product must keep moving. If it stops, the mixture may become too thick and no longer able to be pumped from point to point. The peanut butter slurry next faces a second, very important milling. This is the key to turning a slurry into actual peanut butter. The key technologies here, the stator and impeller.
This is the inner workings of one of our peanut mills. You've got 2 parts, the stationary or stator, and inside the stator are over 200 teeth. You can see them mounted here around the circumference of the stator. This part is the impeller. The impeller is mounted inside the stator, like so, and the impeller is rotating very quickly, rotating at over 9,000 revolutions per minute.
The result? A texture, well, like peanut butter. But all this spinning also causes bubbles. One of the last steps is de-aeration, getting the air out. While the peanut butter is further stirred, a pump connected to the kettle sucks out all the air. It's then cooled.
During the cooling process, the crystal structure of the oils come together. They've been broken apart during the grinding and the mixing process, but here they come together to form a solid structure.
Next, sophisticated packaging machines move like clockwork, filling over 18,000 jars per hour. A bouncing conveyor belt removes any remaining air from the jars, and they're ready for their final seal of approval. Every jar of Skippy gets 1 day of rest before shipping.
Allowing the peanut butter to sit 24 hours in the warehouse gives it the proper consistency when it reaches the consumer.
And it's hard to believe that all this peanut butter comes from one place.
The Skippy plant here in Little Rock, Arkansas produces all the Skippy that's made in the U.S. and all over the world.
Skippy peanut butter. They've got it down to a science. They twist, they turn, they delight the taste buds. Pretzels are a classic snack. And for nearly a century, Snyder's of Hanover has used sophisticated science to make this seemingly simple snack. The key ingredient? Aged dough, called sourdough.
A lot of people may say the company was built on the sourdough box heart, which is a very popular pretzel for us. The sourdough pretzel is made of flour, water, yeast, and sourdough sponge, which helps drive the flavor into the hard pretzel, which gives you that pungent sourdough flavor.
In 1909, businessman Harry V. Wareheim, known as Gramps Harry, started the Hanover Pretzel Company with a single recipe: Hanover Old Time Pretzels. The business took off and became a local success. In 1963, the Hanover brand expanded and acquired another pretzel bakery owned by William and Helen Snyder. The name changed to Snyder's of Hanover. Claude O'Connor has been with the company for more than 10 years.
The product was baked fresh early morning and delivered to local stores, primarily drugstores in that day.
Snyder's of Hanover became famous coast to coast, and so did their unique packaging, a box.
They packaged it in a box, which perhaps was also unique at the time. It wasn't in a bag, a flexible package. And in that box, it was able to be transported longer distances. The sourdough hard pretzels in the brown box is definitely an iconic package for the brand.
Pretzels are one of the world's oldest snacks, dating back to around 610 AD.
A monk in northern Italy or southern France was making unleavened bread for Lent. He had some scrap dough at the time, and he decided to make some small treats for the children as a reward for learning their prayers. He took the scrap dough and he actually twisted them in a shape of children folding their arms in prayer.
In those days, people prayed with their arms crossed over their chest. Monks called the soft-baked treat a pretiola, Latin for little reward. Later it became known as brachiola, which means little arms. The product eventually traveled to Germany, where they called it Brezel, and finally pretzel. In the centuries following, the pretzel became a symbol of good luck, long life, and prosperity.
Tying of the knot is actually a saying that we take from Germany, and today they still use the pretzel shape in their wedding ceremonies as a sign of health, wellness, and happiness.
Some say the pretzel traveled to America on the Mayflower in 1620. The hard pretzel got its start in a small town in central Pennsylvania called Lidditz.
Folklore has it that a baker's apprentice fell asleep while baking a fresh batch of soft pretzels. When he awoke, he felt that he had not baked the product long enough, restoked the fire, and actually cooked the product or baked the product twice. When the baker discovered the error, at first he was very upset. When he tasted the product, he realized that they had discovered a whole new product in hard pretzels.
Today, pretzels are one of the most popular salty snacks in America.
Pretzels are consumed at about 2 pounds per year for every man, woman, and child in the country. So we're looking at about 600 million pounds of pretzels in total consumed in any given year.
Every step is vital in making the perfect pretzel. It all begins with flour and water and a giant 1,500-pound mixing kettle. 2 sets of blades thoroughly blend the ingredients and keep the dough from sticking to the sides. Like most breads, yeast is a critical component. In a process called fermentation, the yeast eats sugars and creates carbon dioxide. As the CO2 gases build up and release, the pretzel gets a lift and rises.
When it comes to fermentation, it's really 3 things. It's leavening of the pretzel, which helps it rise. It's dough maturity, which it helps it mature, and it also develops that flavor.
If you want to see evidence of the carbon dioxide gas, just break open a hard pretzel. You'll see the hollow cavities and uneven texture. That's where the CO2 is captured and held before baking. There's no sugar, salt, or shortening in this recipe. But there is one other important ingredient, sourdough. It gives Snyder's pretzels their distinctive taste. What makes sourdough sourdough? Aging. Surprisingly, it's the same pretzel dough, it's just been fermented longer, so it develops an older sour smell and taste.
The additional fermentation that takes place with the sponge simply adds a unique flavor that you can't find in other pretzels.
How long Snyder's lets their sourdough age is a well-kept secret. But here's what we do know. The moisture content or amount of water in the dough is around 38 to 40%. This is critical. Too much moisture and the dough won't be tough enough. Too little and it'll make it difficult to knead and twist. Next, 650-pound batches of dough enter the loafing chamber. It cuts the dough into 30-pound strips. A twister operator kneads the dough and gets any air pockets out. Back in the early 1900s, highly skilled pretzel makers hand-rolled the dough into long noodles and then individually twisted them. In the 40s, though, Snyder's automated the process by inventing custom-made machines. To this day, they use the same machines. They're irreplaceable.
I think the older ones would work better at this point in time based on the original craftsmanship in the base of that unit. It's very solid, it's very durable. It's not a very common piece of equipment where you can go out and buy new twisters off the shelf because there's not that many companies who are still making a twisted pretzel.
Here's how the twister machines work. They start with small dough balls weighing about 1.5 ounces. 2 rollers turn them into a long noodle. The noodle falls into a holster, and mechanical fingers grab it and tie it into a knot. Another secret? Each machine has its own signature twist.
We do want a little bit of inconsistency intentionally to make sure every pretzel looks like maybe somebody did hand twist it with their own hand.
Next, the twisted pretzels are dropped onto a proofing belt. It's lined with cotton to absorb excess moisture. The dough continues to ferment. It further rises, and the flavors get more sour. After salting, the pretzels go into an oven for about 50 minutes. The oven has 7 zones, each with a different temperature and humidity.
There's really 2 layers to the oven. You have your top oven belt, which is your bake zone. Then your bottom is your kiln or drying zone.
During the baking, the moisture is constantly reduced. The pretzel dough that started out as about 1/3 liquid is reduced to a moisture content of about 5%, the same moisture content as a desert. And that's a plus. Less moisture in the pretzel helps extend the shelf life. And how many calories are in each of these crunches? Well, 100 calories per pretzel, about the same as an apple. Not bad for the calorie conscious.
Trends in the country indicate that that's becoming more and more important, that people look for better for you snacks, and of course pretzels fit that bill.
Every day, Snyder's creates another 270,000 pounds of pretzels from their factory in Hanover, Pennsylvania, the pretzel capital of the world. That adds up to over 100 million pounds per year. But what keeps pretzel lovers coming back for more is Snyder's distinct sourdough taste.
The taste of the product is of utmost importance, and we won't bring a product to market until it absolutely tastes the very finest that we can make that product taste.
We've been popping it for centuries to satisfy our snack cravings. But we've never tasted popcorn quite like this. With leading-edge technology, innovative flavors like Ragin' Cajun and Blueberry Bushel, and the world's only popcorn chef, Dale and Thomas has recreated an old favorite.
I could eat a whole tub of popcorn and put chocolate on it. You've made my day. That would be great.
We're taking a classic snack, the most popular snack food, and taking it to new heights. Creating it with just mouth-watering gourmet ingredients and coming up with flavors that people probably haven't seen anywhere else.
Popcorn eating is a new experience.
Popcorn is so much fun because it is such a great platform to do a myriad of different flavors.
Unlike popcorn itself, the Dale and Thomas Company is relatively young, but their ambitions are mighty. In 2002, friends and co-founders Richard Dem and Warren Struhl met to discuss going into business together.
We were eating popcorn in this meeting. So what about popcorn? No one's done anything with popcorn in 50 years. How do we innovate? How do we take this to the next level? So we did a bunch of research.
Their research paid off. 6 months later, they opened their first store in New York City under the name Popcorn Indiana. The response was explosive.
We took chocolate, took peanut butter, even toffee. We layered it on a popcorn base. And the folks were lining up outside for their next bag.
One of their biggest new fans was NBA Hall of Famer and president of the New York Knicks, Isaiah Thomas. He loved the popcorn so much, he wanted to become part of the craze.
In the fall of 2003, we received a call from a gentleman claiming to be Isaiah Thomas's agent. Isaiah had been looking to get involved in popcorn for 10+ years. So we ended up meeting with Isaiah shortly thereafter, and he clearly said, I don't want to be a talking head for this company. I don't want to be a spokesperson. I want to be involved at the core. Isaiah Thomas is one of the most passionate people I've ever met about his popcorn.
Glad to spread the love of popcorn and give it to people.
3 months later, Isaiah became an official partner. The name of the company changed to Dale and Thomas. The first part of the company name honors a man from Popcorn, Indiana, who inspired them to get into the business.
Dale is a real guy from a real town called Popcorn, Indiana. He told us the ways of popcorn, told us why his town was chosen to be named after popcorn.
Popcorn making is very old. Archaeologists have actually found evidence of this snack attack treat in New Mexico sites dating back more than 5,000 years. More recently, in 1885, inventor Charles Cretors revived the treat with a popping machine powered by steam. In 1893, at the Chicago World's Fair, vendors further popularized it by adding peanuts and caramel. In the early 1900s, Vendors strategically parked their mobile popping machines outside of baseball games, circuses, and movie theaters. Theater owners eventually caught on to the lucrative craze and started selling popcorn inside the theater. Even during the Great Depression in the 1930s, popcorn remained a favorite snack. It was one of the few luxuries people could afford.
Popcorn's a fun food because I think it's an emotional trigger for people. It's a food that brings people together, whether it's memories of when you were a kid, popping it over a campfire, or going to the movies with your first date. It's a shareable and craveable treat. It's something that people are very familiar with.
Around the world, there are 6 basic types of corn, but there's only one that pops. Popcorn.
Popcorn pops, it's kind of a little magic.
How does popcorn pop? Well, inside the kernel is a small amount of water. When you heat it up and the internal temperature reaches between 400 and 460 degrees Fahrenheit, the moisture turns to steam. The steam builds up pressure. Finally, the pressure gets so intense the kernel pops. It actually turns inside out.
The right combination of corn, sugar, oil, and heat give us the very, very best popcorn that we can have.
Dale and Thomas develops amazing flavors by enlisting the help of one unique person.
We knew from day one that we wanted to involve all sorts of gourmet ingredients. We didn't have the know-how to mix in a peanut butter with a popcorn with white chocolate. So we looked in the market for people with classically trained chef backgrounds.
What they found was Chef Ed Doyle.
They tell me I'm the only popcorn chef, the first and only. I'm not sure if that's been validated statistically, but I'll go with it. I spend a lot of my time trying to track down ingredients that other people may not have thought to use.
With those ingredients, Chef Ed chooses between 2 types of popping corn. Sometimes he uses a traditional butterfly-shaped popcorn. Other times he might use a hybrid that is more of a mushroom shape. To make their popular kettle corn, for example, Chef Ed prefers using the butterfly corn.
Kettle corn is popped with sugar and salt, so it's a little sweet, a little salty, super crunchy, and very tasty.
How does Dale and Thomas make their celebrated popcorn? Not surprisingly, it all begins with the poppers, which are central to the operation. They have 12 giant kettle poppers. Each can produce about 700 pounds of popcorn an hour.
The popper is the most important part of our process.
We have custom-built, very high-tech, leading-edge poppers that do the early part of our process.
Dale and Thomas's basic kettle popcorn recipe begins by adding sugar. Each batch is heated for 4.5 minutes at 375 degrees. Precise time and temperature is key to making a successful batch. A stir at the bottom of the kettle continuously moves, ensuring that the corn and sugar don't burn.
This is the kettle corn, and when it comes out of the popper, that sugar is actually in a liquid state. And when it starts to turn into a solid, you can actually see the popcorn settle as it moves from a liquid to a solid.
Next, the popcorn maker adds salt by hand, and you've got a traditional sweet salt taste. But Dale and Thomas doesn't stop there. They take their kettle corn to a new level. Using the kettle corn as a base, Dale and Thomas creates unusual flavors like Southwest Cheddar Chipotle, Buffalo and Blue, and Barbecue. Here's how it works. Popcorn makers tumble the kettle corn in a rotating seasoning drum. By hand, they gently add the flavorings, making sure the popcorn stays whole and the spices are evenly distributed.
When you put it in your mouth, all of a sudden you just get this burst of excitement. We have a sweet, tangy, this tart flavor.
Another one of Dale and Thomas's crowd pleasers is gourmet caramel popcorn. Made with mushroom-shaped popcorn, this process is different from the kettle corn. It starts with a special continuous popper that's 6 feet tall and 3 feet wide. It delivers a whopping 200 pounds of corn an hour.
And it rotates to keep the kernels in suspension so that they get hot enough to pop, and then when they pop, the rotating drum takes them out the exit end of the popper.
The popcorn rests briefly in a holding bin. Then it's ready for the caramel coating.
One of our most closely guarded secrets is our caramel recipe. There's a lot of research and nuanced tuning to it. It's several different sugars, it's molasses, it's real vanilla, it's real butter, but it's those secret ratios that are just top secret.
The secret sugar-based mix is cooked at 335 degrees until it caramelizes and begins to turn brown. Then the popcorn maker adds the popcorn, making sure every piece is thoroughly coated. Dale and Thomas goes one step further with their caramel corn to create flavor sensations like really, really raspberry, blueberry bushel, and sun-drenched strawberry. But Dale and Thomas also use their caramel corn as the base for delectable drizzles, like peanut butter and white chocolate and chocolate chunk and caramel. The company uses a combination of sophisticated drizzling machines and the human touch.
This is a drizzling machine, and we're making our world-famous peanut butter and white chocolate drizzled kettle corn here. And she's applying the second coat of the white chocolate. We want that to be a little more scattered, if you will. Looks wonderful, doesn't it? Beautiful.
Chef Ed uses chocolate to create specialties like popcorn truffles.
This is our Rocky Road truffle, and this was the first one we developed. It really came to realization that this was a great structure for a lot of different flavors.
Yes.
The result? Over-the-top taste.
Melting chocolate is just hypnotic. Every time you touch it, people are just transfixed. Especially when you're drizzling on something really good like super crunchy kettle corn.
Next is packaging. One major challenge is packing the popcorn products before they get stale.
Popcorn is so hygroscopic and it takes up moisture so quickly. We work very, very hard so that it's not exposed to the atmosphere much at all. So the challenge is to, as quickly as we pop it, get everything done to it with the drizzling or the savory seasoning and get it into a sealed package as quickly as we can.
So what's the #1 selling flavor at Dale & Thomas? Chocolate caramel chunk.
It's very difficult to keep your hand out of the bag once you start eating the popcorn.
It's the idea that there's a taste out there for everyone, and that's why for us it's important to have so many flavors in production at any time. We certainly want to be presenting people with enough choice where they can find a flavor that's right for them and kind of embrace that flavor and make it their own.
Utz, Pepperidge Farm, Skippy, Snyder's, and Dale & Thomas. There's a world of fantastic food factories, some remarkable science and technology behind them, and best of all, some great excuses for your next snack attack.